Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Moskaitis, the Director of Marketing with VSGi. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us this afternoon. I have with me Sean Spires, who's the lead video specialist on the eastern half of the United States for Cisco. He's here to talk about the SX10 as a great choice for a low-cost video endpoint for smaller conference spaces. I'll let Sean take over, and he's going to do a short presentation, talk about the product, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. And we should have it all wrapped up in about 30 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. While I pull this up here, just a quick introduction, maybe some background on myself. My name is Sean Spires. I'm the video specialist for SLED. I came into Cisco through the acquisition of Tamberg. However, I actually left Cisco in the early 2000s as a voice and data center and optical specialist, and went to Tamberg only to be acquired back in. So, been doing this for quite some time. I know our portfolio really well. Today, we're going to focus on one piece of that portfolio. Although, at the end, if you have questions on other pieces or how it relates, feel free to open up and ask some questions as we go. Let me just get my PowerPoint. There we go. Hold on a second. So when you look at our entire portfolio, we have everything from standalone codecs to what we call our MX series, which are all-in-one systems, screen, codec, camera, microphone, speakers. And today we're going to focus on the SX10. If those of you aren't familiar with the SX10, we launched it about a year and a half ago, and then recently relaunched a new version of it called the SX10N. And I'll let you know some of the differences in them, although very minor. But the SX10 was really built to be a very low-cost alternative to video, the ability to deploy video out at a massive scale. Right? I have many customers on the east that have over 100, even 200 of these units now. If you think about what they can do, so it's a 1080p video endpoint. It's really easy to deploy. It can be plugged into any type of display that you may already have, whether it's a flat screen or a projector that's already in a room. It's a simple HDMI connection. Plugging it in is very easy. If you have a power over Ethernet network, the device is even powered over Ethernet, or obviously use an injector, but it's sub 12 watts, which means you're not talking about PoE plus, just bang. Regular PoE is great. Again, it's very compact. I very frequently carry around one of mine in a backpack if I'm going places, and I walk into a room to start talking with a customer, and HDMI into a screen, Ethernet connection to the network, and I'm done. It has a microphone built in, which is nice, although it can have external microphones as well. But in a small room, which is designed for, the internal mic in 90% of the cases grabs all the audio you need. Right, which is really nice. Again, as I mentioned, it's 1080p, 30 frame a second video. The camera has an 83-degree field of view, which is great because in most cases we're sitting a lot closer to this unit, being a small room unit, than some of our larger ones. So having that wide field of view means that I'm not losing the people that are in the front right and left corner of the room. Right? It does come with the remote control, although we would prefer you use the touch panel, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But as you can see on the left here, it's 2 cables to hook it up. It's very easy to put in. I'll give you an example of how easy it is. There's a Cisco employee that's on my team, and she works for the University of Nebraska. She has several of these deployed in the School of Education. And a few months ago, and she tells this story well, but a few months ago, she was walking into a room with an SX10 on it. It's a simple 55-inch screen, SX10. She actually just had Velcro under the bottom of it. It's light enough that, a couple strips of Velcro were holding it right to the screen. And the SX10 was missing. She was, uh-oh, maybe it was too easy to put Velcro. Someone walked away with it, right? So she went to go just give a quick mention to the dean, hey, a system's missing. And as she comes around the corner, here's the dean of the School of Education with the SX10 under their arm. And, Mary was like, well, what are you doing? And the dean's like, well, I just needed to make some calls and I wanted to use my office, right? So the dean of the school took the unit down to their office, plugged into their TV, plugged into the network, and made calls. Not a technology person, didn't understand, how hard video used to be, and they basically just came in and started using this system without even thinking about, about it. That's how easy this system has become, right? One of the other things that I start to think about this is, you know, for those of you that are Cisco Call Manager customers, you know, this can register to Call Manager. I have lots of customers, and we've been talking about this for over a year and a half, that are now deploying this as their speakerphone. And think about that for a second, that, you know, if you looked at traditional Cisco speakerphone, you're at about a $1,500 price point. Well, now you look at this, and it's a better voice option than any speakerphone we make. Right? If you've seen Cisco's latest speakerphone, it's a square with a calculator hanging off of it. That's what I like to say, big speaker with a calculator. It has the ability to do audio. It's a video system, but it also has wireless presentation capabilities, and I'll talk about that. It's an application called Proximity, and that's built in as well. And for all that, it's not that much more expensive, right? The list price on a SX10 is $3,900. So, you know, think about that compared to your normal Cisco discount, and you're talking about just north of $2,200, $2,300, $400, and you have a high-def video system, a phone, and the wireless content sharing device all in one room, right? That's why we have many customers that just deploy these to small offices, to small conference rooms, to huddle rooms. I had a customer that just called me yesterday. They're like, Sean, we need to buy another 100 of these because it's just everyone's asking, and it's just going standard in every single room. We have one building on campus where I am in Massachusetts where we put video in over 250 rooms in one building. It's just standard the way we do it now. In fact, we didn't put a single IP phone in that building except for the front desk. Everybody else has video, whether it's a DX80 or this SX10 sitting in small rooms, and certainly our larger systems, right? It's kind of our workplace of the future that we use. I mentioned proximity. For those of you that aren't familiar, all of our video endpoint lines, starting with the SX10, have a feature built into them called proximity. Proximity allows us to share content wirelessly with our video codec. Subsequently, it also allows us to share video from our codec back down to devices. So let's walk through this. So the first thing is, when I walk into a room, the proximity signal that's coming out of all of our systems, it sends out a signal much like a Bluetooth, but a little higher pitch. In that pitch, it's a specific pitch so that it does not go through architecture, which means I can be in room 101 and not hear the signaling in room 102 right next door. And that's very important. Unlike an Apple TV or a Google Chromecast or something like that, a lot of times it's being broadcast in the network, and I could be in a different floor and hit the wrong Apple TV, and all of a sudden I'm showing my content in a screen, you know, 2 floors above me. Who knows where it is, right? This is very specific to that room. In that harmonic signal, we're sending out 2 pieces of critical information. 1, the address of the codec on the network, and 2 is a secure token. That secure token gives me 2 pieces of information. When I get to the codec over the network, it basically says, hey, you know, you're Sean Spires' iPad, yes, or Sean Spires' laptop. You were supposed to be here. I know you're in that room, otherwise you wouldn't have this key, right? And by the way, now it allows me to be securely in that. The other thing is that key is refreshed every 22 seconds. If I were to walk out of a room, if I'm sharing content or having content shared to me and I walk out of a room, I don't get that refresh of the key. I cease to be sharing my content, and I can't receive content, right? And let's talk about receive, because not only am I transmitting wirelessly to the system, but I can receive wirelessly as well. So let's say I'm in a room and someone's presenting from their computer wirelessly. I have 5 or 6 people sitting in that room. Everyone in that room can open up the Proximity app, which is a free download from the iOS or Android store, on their mobile device or iPad or whichever, tablet, and receive whatever content's on the screen. They will now see on their own device in front of them. So think about that. Someone's showing a big spreadsheet on the screen. Maybe you're far away from the table. You can't see the screen well. You can't see the columns. So you now have your iPad in front of you. You can see it right in front of you, but if you still can't see it, you can pinch and zoom it. You can move it around. Oh, I really like this. How many of us have been in meetings where we really like the content that's on the screen? It's important to us, and the first thing we do is take our tablet or phone, hold it up, and take a snapshot of it on the screen. We don't need to do that anymore. It's built into this application. I just hit one button, snapshots the content that's on my screen, goes right into my photos or wherever else I've designated it to. The nice thing is this is a function that can be turned on and off on the fly from our touch panel, right? So again, proximity, not only can I share content wirelessly with the system in the room, but I can receive content. And where this is really important is I can do this functionality whether I'm in a video call or not. So think about that. I walk into a standard meeting room that I'm just holding a meeting in that room, not externally, and I still get this type of feature, right? My director, who's sitting at the end of the table, does not need to get up, move all the way to the front of the table to find whatever dongle to plug this cable into his machine. He just goes to the proximity app and hits share, and bang, his content from the back of the table is now on the screen, right? Take away all that complexity. I'm going to talk about two more things here, and then I'll open it up for questions. What makes the experience in all of our video endpoints critical, very easy to use, is our new touch interface. The same touch interface from the SX10 all the way up to our immersive, $300,000 multi-screen, multi-camera room. It's the same user interface. So when you start to look at how we deploy Cisco video in an enterprise or wherever, knowing that every single room looks and feels and acts the same. If I train someone on this room, they know how to run that room. Right? It looks and feels, it's even the exact same size as an iPad. Right? It's very easy to use. I'll give you an example of how easy this is to use. It has a couple hard buttons, a mute button, a volume button, but all the other buttons are, based on where I am, whether I'm in call, out of call, or such. I had a school recently, I'm in New England, I had a school in Boston. They've recently put our video codecs in north of 150 classrooms in a higher ed. It was a med school. The last step to them agreeing to do this was they wanted to bring 3 professors in to check out the touch panel and the ease of use. And here's how that went. They brought them over to the Boston office. We sat down these guys, and when I asked them, I said, don't bring your professors over. They're your best technology advocates that love technology and can adapt to everything you put in front of them. Bring over the 3 that absolutely hate technology and complain and whine the most about why do you keep sticking this stuff in the room and why is it so hard to teach now because of all these gadgets. I want a transparency and I want my chalkboard, right? They're like, we know those guys. We know exactly who you need. So they brought them over. I asked them to do a couple of things in the touch panel. Before I even told them why they were there, they were able to share content. They made a video call. They moved from one screen to another just by drag and dropping. They did everything they needed to do, and I taught them how to use this in 8 minutes, to the point where I was still going off a little bit on it. And one of the guys says, hold on, Sean. He turned to the IT director of the school and goes, why isn't every room in the school this easy to run? This is as easy as my iPad, as easy as my iPhone. I can run this already. I didn't even need to tell him he had been trained, and he had already known it. He's like, I can run this. There's nothing I can't do on this. So that was their decision to originally do 96 rooms, is now up to over 150, leveraging this touchpad. Now, what's really interesting about this touchpad, besides that, it's a PoE device, right? It goes with all of our endpoints. It's really good for using for phones as well, to dial from audio only, like I mentioned. You can mount it, it sits on the table. We also have a wall mount box for it, so if you walk into a room, you need to wake it up. But the other thing that we've done with this touchpad across our entire portfolio is we've allowed it to be customized. So as an end user, you can go in and add a couple more screens. How many times have we said, listen, video's great in this room, but I need other things. I need cable to come in. I need TV to come into this screen. Or I have room controls, lights, blinds, those kind of things. Whether I need a Crestron or such, if you guys are familiar with Crestron, whether I need that or not in the background, sometimes I still need it to put screens up and down, those kind of things I need it. However, what I can do is condense everything and use this single touchpad to control it. So this touchpad is controlling the endpoint, and then I can pull up a page within the touchpad and control all my room systems and controls and TV, cable box, document camera, all my other peripherals right from this device, right? Really making this easy to use for my end users. One of the last things I'd like to say about all of our endpoints is that we now have really 2 models. Traditionally, we've had our on-prem, where all these endpoints can connect to our call manager. To traditionally, Cisco, the Tamber VCS is still out there, right? But for us, it's a phone. However, what we've also recently introduced is cloud service. The ability to take one of these systems and register it to our cloud. And what that means is I can get going on video without a large investment. I can buy 2 of these video endpoints for 2 small offices, register it for, like, I think it's $29 a month to the cloud versus buying all the on-prem infrastructure, and I'm up and running. In fact, it's so easy to run that when I turn the system on, it says choose a service. If I choose Cisco Spark, which is our cloud service, I then put an access code that I get with the box in it. It registers itself and it's running. It's fully operational within a few seconds. So it's really easy to deploy. It's really easy to manage, right? And it's at a very low cost point, not only from the endpoint, but from that monthly recurring service, right? So if that's the case you're in, this fits really well in there, although this Spark service works for our entire product line. I'd also like to invite you, if you're interested in the Cisco product line, to come to projectworkplace.cisco.com, and it really shows our entire video line, including going into scenarios where it will show different types of rooms and how you can build out different rooms, including specs and where to put microphones, those kind of things, to truly get an idea of what I can do from a room, from a small, medium, large, and very large lecture hall type of environment, right? So I'm going to kind of stop there, and I'm going to stop sharing, and I appreciate your time. But what I would like to do is just kind of open it for more questions to the group here.
All right, so right now I have everyone muted. If you'd like to ask a question, just go ahead and type it into the chat box, and we'll make sure Sean can answer it for you.
Do we have any in the chat box already? No?
Nothing yet. As always, though, if you leave this presentation and view it later or think of something you'd like to ask at another time, we'd be happy to connect with you later as well.
And I think with a small to medium-sized group here, I don't know if we can open audio up, but if someone wants to ask the question live, too, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, let me unmute everyone.
That's work.
A little bit.
Tim, and I have a question. Now, these are SIP-only devices, correct?
Actually, that was correct maybe as of about 3 months ago, but with the newest codes we just put on here, the 8.2 code actually added a 323 engine based on customer demand. Everyone's asking us to put 323 in this, and that is now in there based on the 8.2 code.
Okay, there's no way to upgrade existing, right? Or you bought the old one, you're stuck with SIP?
No, absolutely not. So the old one will run 8.2 code as well. So if you want to run that and turn H323 on, all you need is the newest code downloaded, which is no problem at all. The only difference between... Go ahead.
What version do I need to be running on those devices?
You want to be running CE 8.2.
Okay, so you have to have the... we still use VCS. We still use that version of software on with our VCS.
Yes, you can go to CE even with the VCS. But you would have to go to CE code versus TC code. Honestly, there's not for SX10, there's not going to be a lot of difference. It's really only some of the stuff up in the, the C90, SX80 area where CE versus TC code is going to say, hey, wait, hold on a second, right? But from an SX10, there's no reason whatsoever not to go to the CE code chain, which is our new code, and that is what we're going forward with. TC will be gone very soon. There's no reason not to go to it. If you go to it, go right to 8.2, and you'll get a full 323 engine in there as well.
That's Charlie Echo, right? CE?
That is correct. Yep. Collaboration experience is what it stands for.
And 8.02. Okay.
8.20 is where that. Now, for those of you who know the SX10, about 8 months ago, we released an SX10N. Right, which is the N stands for new hardware. And honestly, the only difference between the SX10 and the SX10N was we took a little teeny speaker that was in the back of the system and moved it to the front. And the reason we did that is what we found is proximity is very important. It was important to us, but it's even more important for the ultrasonic signaling when we start registering to Spark. It's what allows me when I walk into a room that the endpoint understands my Spark endpoint in that room and it automatically makes that Sean system. Right, so I walk into a room with any cloud-registered Spark endpoint, and the system knows when I walk in the room. It allows me to control it from an iPhone or wherever my Spark client is. It allows me to transfer calls to it. All that was based on the fact that we needed that little speaker, because what we found is with the SX10, people were plugging it into speakers that may not be able to handle the frequency we needed to send out that high-frequency communication. So we put a little teeny speaker in the front of the SX10 to be able to handle that better. And that's the only difference between the architecture of the devices.
What does the touch panel add to the cost?
Yeah, so a touch panel, to add it, a touch panel is about $1,500 list. So you're looking between, $700 to $900 street price, which is basically right around the price of a touch or an iPad, right?
Okay. You said is it USB or wireless or both?
It is actually Ethernet, power over Ethernet connected, but it does want to be an Ethernet connection. When we started looking at the design phase of this, we basically didn't go with wireless. One, wireless made us put a big, heavy battery pack in it, made the size a lot bigger, but what we found out from our competitors as well as our partners in Crestron, AMX, and such is that, you know, a lot of times what will happen is someone will come in, use a wireless tablet, leave it unplugged on the table, and the next time someone goes to use it, it's out of power. And if you're going to have it sit on the table and wired up anyway, why not that wire be an Ethernet? Now, the nice thing about that is you can connect it, for the SX10, it's connected over the network. For something like our SX80, you can connect it directly into the system or over the network. However, one thing you will find coming out from us, probably in about 3 months from now still, we're still a little behind on it, but we're going to be making a little dongle. Right? If you're familiar, if you have a Mac and you have a little USB to Ethernet dongle, we will have a special one coming out for the SX10 that will allow you to use the USB port in the back of the SX10 to plug a touch panel directly into it versus register it over an IP address on the network.
Can you register a DHCP?
Absolutely. In fact, I have, off of my codec here in my home office, I have a switch that the codec provides DHCP2, and I have 3 touch panels hanging off of that for different places in my office. Really only because I can, really to show off what we can do. I certainly don't have an office big enough that I need 3 touch panels, but you know that basically shows you the codec will support DHCP behind it as well. Good questions. How about some more? Someone's gonna have some questions out there.
So what size room did you recommend this? I guess what would be the limits of the room for this size unit?
Yeah, so if you think about the camera, I mean the limits of the camera, right? It's a 2.5 times zoom camera with a 2 times digital, so a total of a 5 times zoom. Because it's a wide camera, you know, I don't think there's really a big width that's an issue. It's wider than any camera we have. Obviously, I wouldn't go more than maybe 14, 16 feet wide. If you start looking at the depth of a room, you know, 15, maybe 20 feet is okay. It really depends on how close you want to have to zoom in to the person at the very end of the table. When you're talking about that larger room, though, you know, I would certainly put a secondary microphone plugged into it versus just the internal mic. The internal mic and secondary mic can work simultaneously. So what that does is if you put a mic way down at the end of the table, you're kind of covering both sides of the room. The internal mic will cover someone sitting close to the X10 or the SX10. The external mic will be further down the table. The other thing is the speakers, right? Try to use a good audio system, a screen. Try not to use the speakers built into most screens, right? Try to use a sound bar, something like that, so that you can fill the room with sound.
Okay, because we have a lot of rooms that they simply use the speakers on the TVs because of the cost and all that stuff involved in trying to add stuff and space.
Yeah, you know, I think that will work. It really depends on what kind of screens and speakers you're getting. You know, I have 2 flat panels at home, and they have these little teeny speakers on the back that face towards a wall.
Yeah.
I would not be comfortable watching TV like that because there's, you know, they weren't meant for that. So if you have true commercial displays, they want some kind of audio system hanging out of them. Most you know, TVs you would buy at, you know, Best Buy or CDW or online somewhere, most of the time they will have a good set of speakers in them. So it honestly falls down onto, you know, what kind of speakers are in the screen.
Yeah, and the size of the room and everything. We've had pretty good luck. The only thing that we've got some of these coming into the FAA now, but I was amazed at these internal microphone, how well it worked in a room without any additional mic. It picked up pretty well. I was really surprised, and the camera did well. I guess the only problem I had with it is that we was the SIP device issue is because we have to dial, currently having to dial them with the full SIP address when we have to dial from one VTC, try to dial into it.
Yeah, which also means you have to have it registered somewhere and have to have a SIP registrar and, you know, translation and all that. But like I said, now with the newest code, and if you're under maintenance, there's no charge for that. With the newest code, you can download it, and there is a 323 engine in there. In fact, for those of you who know our DX80 and DX70, we did a similar code upgrade to those, and those now have full 323 capability as well. I'm glad your experience with them is good. I found that same thing. In fact, you know, we've used some of the same internal microphones in the MX2 and 300, and a lot of customers I have that they don't need external microphones in them at all. Right? We have new beamforming microphones coming out in a new system next year that are amazing. They can really understand people sitting close to the screen as well as people sitting far away, and actually adjust themselves based on the how loud the voice is. It's actually pretty interesting.
Okay, I got one text or message asking about how he can rewatch this webinar. I will send this out to everyone who registered probably later this afternoon when it becomes available to me. Feel free to forward that on to anyone else in your organization. I will also put it on the VSGi website as well. Were there any other questions for Sean while we have him?
And as always, you can forward your questions to VSGi, and then, you know, if they can't answer it, which they should, but they can get to me. How about, I see Ron Cisco out there. Ron, you got any questions?
No questions, Sean.
Okay.
Sean, is the touch panel, you said, can it be used on any of the SX10s? You said move from room to room. Can it be carried into another room and plugged into the use for that?
Yeah, I can register a touch panel. So the touch panel, where today it doesn't directly connect to the SX10. That's still not until we get the dongle out. All I need to do is put the IP address of the system that I'm communicating to into the touch panel. And I'll give you an interesting example. I mentioned that medical school that has over 150 systems right now in Boston. The director of communications, the guy who manages all those video systems, has a touch panel in his office. And when anyone in a room calls, the first thing he does is he will use his touch panel over the network to connect to the video endpoint in that room for a couple reasons. One is so that he can control it, help him out, but two is so that he is not in the web interface. He's looking at the exact interface on his touch panel that they see. So when he is working with them, he can kind of walk them through, hey, okay, 3 inches up on the left, you'll see this button. That's what you want to hit to activate the camera, right? So he's doing that. He has one at home as well, so he can manage any system over the network from a touch panel at home, right? So that kind of shows you how flexible that is.
You can only have one IP. I guess you can't have two devices with the same IP trying to control the same system, or?
Not with the same IP, no. You know, here in my office, I have 3 touch panels connected to my system, although that is to an SX80. I have not tried multiple touch panels to an SX10, but I don't see why that wouldn't work. I can tell you that Cisco officially, through TAC, we support 1 touch panel connected, but I have many rooms with multiple touch panels with no issues at all, and I've been doing that for far over a year. And that's simultaneous, right, where I am. The nice thing about that, because it's simultaneous, I can walk up to one touch panel, change cameras, walk up to the other touch panel, and it is a complete state. You know, it's not where the former touch panel was. It's watching everything. Anyone else? Everybody else experienced the SX10? Any comments of success? Any questions of, hey, we wish it did X? I'm also on the Tiger team that can help make recommendations for next-gen stuff. So if there's something you said, hey, I wish this was in it, this is a good time to let me know.
All right, Sean. Well, I think we're coming up on 30 minutes here, and we've gotten all the questions answered. Again, please feel free to reach out to me or anyone at VSGi with any other questions, and we'll get them taken care of for you. I'd like to thank Sean again for his time and the great presentation and information. Once again, I'll send this out to everyone who registered when it becomes available to me later this afternoon or tomorrow. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys. Time and the opportunity to speak.